Shirdi, a haven for the devotees of was born in Hyderabad in 1888. His father was a building contractor in the regime of the Nizam. Having lost their breadwinner at an early age, the Talims shifted to Mumbai. Having an inherent love for the arts, Balaji enrolled at the J.J. School of Art in the sculpture and modeling department. A clever and industrious student, he won the Dolly Carson Prize and the prestigious Viceroy Mayo Medal in 1911. His work was greatly influenced by the westernized, realistic style which prevailed in those days. He surprised British critics by winning renown in the realm of realistic human statues. From then on, the task of crafting memorial statues in India was no longer sent abroad. Instead, Indian sculptors were given the opportunity. After completing his education, he began teaching at the J.J. School of Art. At around this time, he got married to Sumati Dere, who was an artist in her own right. This is not a painting, but a piece of embroidery by her. It looks as if it is painted with a brush because of its intricacy. In 1917, he established the Talim's art studio in Mumbai. Along with commercial work, he also created several sculptures for his own pleasure. His innumerable sculptures depicting the hard life of the common people of India won him many awards. The Snake Charmer, The Woman to the Well, The Beggar and His Son. This sculpture won the gold medal of the Bombay Art Society in 1923. He won another gold medal from the Bombay Art Society for his sculpture of the Cotton Spinner. It is a classic example of a fluid, rhythmically flowing sculpture. The positioning of the cotton spinner's fingers lightly touching the cotton thread is exquisite. Her curvaceous figure and the gentle femininity exuded by her expressive face attract the attention of the viewer. The folds of the sari, due to the spinner's movements, are a testimony to the sculptor's intense powers of observation. The Snake Charmer attracted a lot of attention and praise at the British Empire exhibition held in Wembley, London in 1924-25. On display at the J.J. School of Art is this half statue of the downtrodden. It is an excellent example of expressionist art. An impoverished man with weak eyesight has bent down to repair his shirt. The body language of the statue exudes compassion. He sculpted several such statues for his own pleasure. Because of his expertise in working in varied genres, Balaji Talim was offered commissions to sculpt memorial statues from a very young age. Baba of Shirdi has always fulfilled the innermost desires of his devotees, but the manner in which he influenced the carving of his sculpture by a unique artist like Balaji Talim was truly miraculous.
This sculpture of Sai Baba was created by my grandfather in 1954. This is a model of the marble statue which is installed at Shirdi. It was while he was carving the statue that my grandfather witnessed a miracle. He saw Baba at this very place. Photos of Baba from varying angles were not available. A sculptor can carve an accurate likeness only if he has photographs of a subject from different angles, particularly the profile. Since my grandfather did not have access to all this, he always had doubts about what the statue should look like. He spent several months working on the clay model, but did not get the answer he was looking for. One day, he walked into the studio at 7 a.m., as was his habit. We live upstairs in the same building. When he entered the studio, he was about to switch on the light when he saw Sai Baba himself standing next to the covered clay model. The vision must have lasted for a fraction of a second. But in that moment, all the doubts that had been raging in his mind were cleared. In a way, it was as if Sai Baba himself gave him the permission to forge ahead. Once the rough clay model was ready, Baba's devotees and other contemporaries were invited to approve it, and they wholeheartedly did so. Another miracle took place a few days later. My grandfather needed a large block to begin work on the final statue. In those days, such large marble blocks were sourced from only one place, Rajasthan. The order for the block had been placed, but it would take at least 2 months before it was delivered. One day, a friend working at Bombay Port Trust dropped in at the studio and asked about what work was in progress. When he learned that my grandfather needed a large marble block to start work on the Sai Baba statue, he remembered that such a block had been lying unclaimed at the port premises for almost a year and a half. He invited my grandfather to come to the port and examine the block, and, if found suitable, bid for it at the auction. When my grandfather went to the port, he was shocked to see a first-quality Italian marble block of exactly the size he wanted. Importing such a block from Italy would have been impossible, but here it was, as if by miracle. Finally, the Shri Sai Baba Sansthan bid for the block, and the marble statue was crafted in this very studio. It was a really tough task in those days. The third miracle occurred when 75% of the marble statue was ready. The upper portion had been completed, and work on the lower half was in progress. One day, my grandfather found that his workers had stopped working on the statue. On being asked why, they said that the chipping sounds of the chisel near the foot area were not sounding right. On examining the unfinished statue, he found that there was indeed a problem. But the risk had to be taken, since it was impossible to change the marble block at such a late stage. My grandfather prayed to Sai Baba and began to work. On the right side, there is a natural crack in the stone, what we call a natural hairline crack, running straight across the line of the foot. Normally, any natural crack will follow a straight line. But when work was reinitiated, the crack curved away from the straight line, and the unwanted portion fell off. Once again, Sai Baba had saved him. This is a perfect example of how Sai Baba looks after his devotees. The statue was eventually completed and installed at Shirdi, where lakhs of devotees come every year to witness this miracle in stone. This studio was established in 1917 by Balaji Talim, and we have been in these premises since 1937. Several statues were crafted
Society is the creation of the Art Society of India. Balaji Talim was among the 5 artists who came together to establish the society in 1918. Balaji Talim wanted the society office to be close to his studio in Girgaon. His son Harish Talim continued to be associated with the society.
This business was then looked after by his son Harish Talim, who was also a professional sculptor. He also crafted several statues. The most famous is a 16-foot bronze statue, the Martyrs Memorial at Flora Fountain, near the fort area. Then the statue of Lal Bahadur Shastri at Worli. He has also crafted and installed several statues all over Mumbai and India. We have been doing this work for the last 103 years.
Balaji Talim was an extraordinary sculptor. We learned a lot of technicalities from him. For example, the human skull does not have a fixed joint as it appears to be, but in reality, it is an interweave of a number of bones. This is how sculpture was crafted. This is evident in the statue of Dada Bhoi Nauroji. Balaji Talim had his own unique style of sculpting. His enticing sculptures set an ideal for all of us to follow. There was no brazing in those days. Joining 2 metals seamlessly is very difficult. But Talim showed us how to do it. And the way he used to do it was really amazing. His approach towards his creations was quite unique and little different from the traditional way. He also introduced surface finishing. Very skillful artisans used to do finishing, and only after that the sculptor was sent for oxidation.
The 3 major proponents in contemporary Indian sculpture in India are Rao Bahadur Ganpatrao Mahatre, Balaji Vasantrao Talim, and Vinayak Pandurang Karmarkar. All 3 made a significant contribution in the Bombay tradition of sculpture. Their contribution lies in crafting 2 types of sculptures. One is sculptures created for one's own happiness, for their own happiness. And 2, sculptures created for purely commercial motives. Like Mahatre, Balaji Talim sculpted several works of art for his own happiness. In 1923, he crafted a sculpture known as The Beggar and His Son. This is an exquisite statue which is now lost forever. Even the Talims do not have a copy of it at their own studio. However, the photographs exist. The helpless plight of the father and son is expressed through their body language. Their uplifted arms, hoping for alms, and with a tattered bag slung over his shoulder, the boy's slightly raised foot and extended palm convey his eagerness. Another of Balaji Talim's famous sculptures is the Cotton Spinner, which won the Bombay Art Society's gold medal in 1932. This sculpture depicts the fluidity of the female form through the positioning of the body and hands as she extracts the thread from the cotton. There is a silent symphony of trade in her extracting the thread for her livelihood. And her eyes depict the monotony of her trade.
Balaji Talim studio was in Girgaon, which was quite close to my school. And near his studio, there was a very narrow by-lane. And behind that studio was my school, which was run by Gokhale Education Society. As time passed by, I was allowed to enter the studio. It was the first time ever that I saw an artist's studio. The studio was quite large, almost 20-25 feet long in height. As a youngster, I was curious about what went on in the studio. I had seen the statues of Ramakrishna Paramhans, Dadabhai Navroji, Sai Baba, and Dhyaneshwar. All these sculptures that I had seen were really divine, and I was curious about the creator who had made these sculptures. On the shelf, I also saw a bust of Jawaharlal Nehru. Even today, the studio is exactly how it was when I saw it first. A sofa at one end and all the important sculptures Balaji Talim had crafted. There was, of course, the Sai Baba model, and next to it was Ramakrishna Paramhans' statue. It was a statue with an expression never seen in any other Ramakrishna statue. At the JJ School of Art, a new syllabus was introduced focusing on clay modeling and the new style of sculpting adopted by Balaji Talim and other Indian sculptors. Minute detailing played a very important role in which Balaji Talim had excelled. This process, which was taught in the art school, remained the same. The only difference which was created by our sculptors was the subject. As of today, I feel all his creations someday will be used as a case study for the new generation. I thus got to see all the award-winning sculptures which had made Balaji Talim an important Indian sculptor. I was lucky enough to see all his work.
The statue of Dadabhai Navroji had been assigned to a foreign sculptor, but he could not capture Dadabhai's likeness. Eventually, it was given to Balaji Talim, who created a sculpture which accurately caught the essence of what the great man he was. His learning, his nationalism, his poise and personality is all reflected in the statue. Whether it is Dadabhai Navroji or Petty Gara or even Sai Baba, Balaji Talim's greatest achievement is that he is able to capture the very essence of his subjects. Balaji Talim's greatest achievement is that he is able to capture the very essence of his subject's personality.
Thus, the tradition goes on. After me, my son has now joined me in this field.
My name is Gaurang Talim. I am the fourth generation of Talims working in this studio, our studio. I studied for 4 years at the Bharatiya Vidyapeeth, which is in Pune, and now I am working in my own studio. I will now show you the process of marble carving. We are now crafting a statue of Sai Baba, so let me show you the process of how we exactly carve. So what you see here is a pentagraph compass. This is the original model of the Sai Baba statue. So all these black dots that we see on this statue, these are actually points. These points are individually measured by the pentagraph needle. This needle can travel on all 4 sides. And then the point which we have taken in here, then we transfer it in here with this pentagraph needle right here. And then we just fix it. Usually when we receive a marble block, it is a whole block. It is this much. It's a whole block, which is around, let me show you, around this much. Then the measurements that we have taken here are then applied to the block. Then we start carving the block from here to this point, and when this needle fixes at this point, we call it a final point. We use roughly 1,000 to 2,000 points to make a statue. Once this carving process is completed, when we near the completion, we move towards our next step, the last stage in our process, which is finishing. So for finishing, we use hand grinders and we do hand polishing. And after buffing it accurately, our process of carving gets completed.
Sai Baba statues are in demand all over the world. America, Canada, Australia.
The crafting of Sai Baba's statue was no doubt a miraculous moment in Balaji Talim's life. But he also crafted several other saints capturing their very essence. Balaji Talim always preferred to work from a live model for the best results. Thus, his studio was often graced by pious saints like Gadge Maharaj. Balaji Talim's work was praised even by Western critics. He passed away at the age of 82 years. His work was carried forward by his son Harish Talim, and later his grandson Rajiv Talim and great-grandson Gaurang Talim. Balaji Vasantrao Talim's crafting of the Saibaba statue gave him everlasting fame, but also cemented his position in the history of art as an unparalleled artist.